presentable, and we appreciate him and his work and leadership of that team. Scott, thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent. We are excited to be able to share some information K through 12 with you this evening. We've got a couple of teams here. Maybe just raise your hand so you know who's here. But you got they did rock paper scissors to see who would go first. Secondary won. Actually, they just volunteered. But secondary will present first. So you have Gary Twitchell, who's our Director over Research and Evaluation, and Brandon Jackson, who's our Assistant in Research and Evaluation. They'll present today, and then after they present, we'll have the elementary jump in. But elementary is led by Jason Croton, right here, and then you got Jesse Cannon, Aubrey Lundquist, Mackenzie Smith, and Tori Phillips. So we're very excited for their team and the presentation they have. So, Gary, Brandon.
Okay, we're going to be presenting some secondary data. The data that we've chosen to present most closely aligns with what's commonly called the school report card. The reason we selected this was that it most closely aligns with AESD's coherence map, and it helps schools set goals. Okay, we're going to try this. Brandon said it was idiot proof, so we'll probably go off. Is this the right button? Ah, good. Okay. By the way, Brandon's is the brains of the outfit. I just go along with him. Okay, the coherence map asks schools to set goals in 3 areas. These are school-wide achievement, student group achievement, and student connection. The data we're going to review today helps in these 2 areas, and it's mostly from the Aspire, RISE, AP, ACT, and things like this. And this data is obtained from both Data Gateway and the Data Dashboard, both of which you should have access to. And this helps schools see areas of potential weaknesses and where they can begin to improve. The student group achievement uses the same type of data, but it focuses specifically on specific student groups that might be achieving in a lesser manner than the school at large. And typically, these are the students with disabilities, or the mobile students, or economically disadvantaged, or others. The student connection piece is measured by these things within our district. We're not going to spend any time really there today. Perhaps, you invite us back and we can share some of this data with regard to how schools are making connections. But for now, we're going to focus mostly on achievement and student group achievement. The school report card, as you'll remember, measures 4 areas. It measures achievement, which we often call proficiency. It measures growth, English language learner progress, and post-secondary readiness. Under achievement, we measure language arts, math, and science, and you get a proficiency score. How many of your students hit proficiency? How many of your students demonstrated competency? Growth measures in the same area, but it also takes into consideration the growth of the lowest 25%. And so it's to drive schools to focus with those students that are underachieving and target those students with regard to interventions. English language learner progress, we're not going to talk about too much today because that data was not available to us. It will be coming out actually tomorrow. So we'll have that data and we'll add it to this later. But it measures whether students have made adequate progress toward gaining English language acquisition and whether they've reached proficiency. So those are the 2 measurements there. Post-secondary readiness measures the percentage of students who got an 18 or better composite score on the 10th grade ACT that's given. It also measures the graduation rate, and it measures what we call readiness coursework, which is mostly AP, concurrent, and CTE pathway completers. Under achievement or proficiency, in secondary, the 2 main things we use are the RISE, which is used for grades 7 and 8, and this is a course-specific test, and it measures the student's ability on that course. So the students take a test based on the class they're in. So if they're in a higher math, they take a higher math test. But then all the data is aggregated as a single score. The Aspire, which is used for grades 9 through 10, this is a grade-specific test. It measures overall understanding in each of those areas. It's most similar to like taking the ACT, and it's often used to predict an ACT score. When we look at proficiency for Alpine, we can see that Alpine does extremely well compared to the district in each of the areas. I've included some other districts so you can kind of see how we compare to some of the districts that are larger and or close to us. So we can see, that there is a little bit of room for improvement, but as you can see, like in language arts at 51%, we're doing extremely well. In mathematics, we're doing very well, and in science, we're doing very well. I've included this one because this slide shows how Alpine's doing with each of the subgroups, each of the student groups. We can see that based on this information that our economically disadvantaged kids, our kids with limited proficiency, are not performing at the same level as this district as a whole. So these could be target groups that schools might want to focus on as they begin trying to determine student group specific areas to focus on. Oh, and schools get this for their school. It's right off Data Gateway. It's a piece of information they can readily get so they can see how each of their student groups are doing. Okay, 4-year achievement proficiency trends. We've included this slide so we can see how we've been doing over the last few years, and we wanted to include 2019 because this was pre-COVID, and then we had the COVID year where we didn't test, and we can see that there was a drop, but we got pretty close to where we were pre-COVID across the board. So the teachers and everybody have been making very good efforts with regard to improving since the COVID incident. There is a glaring thing up there that shows in one area we didn't make as much progress. You can see that high school math dropped, and we would expect that because, if you're not having that continuity of instruction, we're going to lose that instruction and they're going to be a little bit behind. So we haven't completely recovered, but as you can tell, we're still doing better than the state because the whole state suffered that same problem. So that again might be a targeted area for the entire school, for a school-wide goal. Okay, I'm going to turn the time over to Brandon, and he's going to go over some school-specific information for middle schools and the high schools.
So this is the 2023 school year end-of-level testing slides that I'm going to show you in each subject area. This one's English Language Arts, and it's 7th through 9th grade, so this is the middle schools first. On this side, on the left side, you have the schools listed and the proficiency. So these are how many students, percentage-wise, were proficient on the end-of-level English Language Arts. Then over here we have the growth. So USBE considers growth between 40 and 50 as a good measure to show that the school is improving. So for example, Pleasant Grove might have a little bit lower proficiency, but they're top in their growth. So they've done something in their school improvement plan that's working. Here is mathematics. You can see a similar thing with mathematics. We're still above as a district in mathematics. This is middle school to the Utah state average.
Hang on just a minute.
Yep.
Just by point of reference, again, remember from 40 to 50 is considered that a school is making adequate progress. So when you see a score like this, 61, that is exceptional.
Yep.
So PG Junior is doing a fantastic job. Lake Mountain, they're knocking it out. They have a consolidated plan that they've worked with the supervisors to improve where they've been. You generally do not see that high of a number. Okay, so that's phenomenal on their part.
And we also see this in science. Mountain Ridge, high proficiency, and high growth. There's some great, tremendous improvement there, especially with Lehigh Junior, Orem Junior of note, Lake Ridge, Pleasant Grove, all the way down. Over half our schools were making tremendous growth in science.
And everybody met USB standard 4 growth.
Yep.
So going back, there were several schools who didn't meet the previous one. Yeah. So what happens when they don't meet the 40%?
Then the supervisors go out there and they meet with them and they review part of the reasons of why, and then they set goals for improvement within those areas. So they might look at, what are they teaching, how are they teaching, the engagement that's happening, things like that. What might be causing, and that's generally where they'll bring Brandon and myself in, and we'll go into a deeper data dive with them, and we'll actually look at teacher by teacher with regard to what their proficiencies might be, what their growth might be, so we can begin targeting areas.
Any state sanctions associated with secondary?
The only state sanctions that come is when you are in the lowest 5%, and then you get on the TSI list or the CSI list. But if you're like Mountain Ridge right here, you're at 39, that's so close, the state's not going to do anything. And you'd expect them to have a little bit lower growth because they're doing so well on their proficiency. The higher you are on proficiency, the harder it is to get growth. And that's why when on the other slide, when you see Mountain Ridge at both high proficiency and high growth, that's something you typically do not see, again, because it's really hard to get growth when you're already at 67%. And that's like one of the highest in the state for science there. I think the highest for middle schools was around 70 or something like that. So, again,
question.
Yes.
When you see something like that, that's extraordinary. Does the district encourage, like for example, with Mountain Ridge, the science teams to meet with other science teams throughout the districts to kind of collaborate and share with them how they're teaching, what they're doing to make those
Yes.
kind of...
Yes, they do.
that is one of the reasons that we have the data dashboard, and one of the reasons they bring Brandon and I out is that they'll ask, okay, where's the school performing well? So we can learn from each other. The whole idea of having the data dashboard was to make data readily available so you can find schools that are doing great and then not have to reinvent everything. You go in and copy kind of what they're doing, and then you tailor make it for your own clientele.
Okay, so similar question, but when you guys were showing us comparisons with other districts throughout the state, when we see that we have a particular district that's excelling in math or language arts or whatever, do we go out there and say, what are you doing? Do we collaborate from district to district when we see?
We do a little. Scott was setting something up down with Washington County because they were excelling in some areas. And he was going to take our team down there this coming year to visit with them. I know there's been visits out to Wasatch County, visiting with them with regard to what they're doing in some of their areas, because we typically have been crushing Wasatch, but then lately they passed us, and that was a little disconcerting on our part. So they sent us out there to go see, okay, what changes did you make that maybe we didn't make? It's part of that adjustment. As a former coach, I was always watching what other coaches were doing and then stealing their ideas. And that's how, we kind of want to be, is we want to see what schools are doing great, and we want to borrow from them. Same with districts, but to a lesser extent.
Thank you for answering that.
And these slides should be coming to you from Scott if you haven't got them already. Okay.
And we'll update it, and then Scott will send it out to you when we get more data too.
Thank you.
Okay, so this is a student group that we're looking at, the English language learners. If you compare us to the state, we look above, which is great. As Gary said earlier, compared to the general population, they are lower. We are making improvements though in all areas. Yeah, see that 7.9, that was after COVID. We've jumped even to a higher rate than pre-COVID. So there's been some great effort and strides there. Same with science. I mean, 15.1%, that's the highest I've seen. But we can still make improvement. If we bring up those students with their proficiency and achievement, then we're going to bring up all the students. And we've seen that time and time again. Here's 10th grade, high school. Again, 49% Alpine. We are
Did we see Webb back
leading
there?
the state.
Oh my heck, Webb, what'd you guys do last year?
They had high proficiency and high growth. So that was great. And again, you guys are getting these slides. I'm going to go through them a little faster now, but because our time is limited. Here is mathematics. Timpanogos knocking it out of the park right there, 59.5. That is tremendous. Anything in the upper 50s is showing they did something different.
So, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
You talked about growth. They're looking from 40 to 60%. What about proficiency? Like, is 18% really bad, or how do we scale that?
Good question.
That's a great question.
18% is not good, but it's still above the state average. Okay? Math really tanked last year across the state.
Gary, Brandon,
So the
what?
state average is 27.
Oh, wait, no, you're right. My bad.
Yeah.
So everybody from here down is below. Yeah.
But if we look at their growth,
I was thinking all grades.
if they're above 40, even closer to 50, right? So if we look here, yeah, they're below, but they're on track to improving their school proficiency to be higher than the state average. Yeah.
Does your data dashboard allow you to compare the teacher years of service steps?
It does not.
No, we don't have an idea of how many years a teacher has from a data dashboard, but the principal probably,
They know.
probably know, and they can kind of see, whether a more seasoned teacher is doing better or a newer teacher.
Don't know.
Yeah, they can
That's
see
not
that.
on the dashboard.
Hey, this is grade 10. Is that the last grade where everybody takes math and after that is kind of like,
No, it's the last year it's assessed. So in
Okay.
grade 10 you take the Aspire, in grade 11 you take the ACT, in grade 12 you don't take anything.
Although you
Math
can.
courses.
Yeah.
Yeah, other than the courses. Oh, and courses, you have to take 3 years of math. So theoretically, you could be done after your junior year with math. Most students will go 4 years if they're college bound.
And they can earn college credit.
Gary, Brandon, maybe
Yeah.
maybe talk through the cut scores on the proficiency, because that gives a gauge of where the state sets their line and then who's above or who's below, and that's your percent. Just so there's an explanation of where proficiency comes from. This isn't, you can't look at it like 27% of our kids, or like a history test. The state sets a cut score that anybody above this line is proficient, anybody below, and there's different categories in between. But once that line is set, then anybody above that line is considered proficient, anybody below would be not proficient. And so that's saying 29% of all of our students in 10th grade math are above that line the state
The
sets.
state proficiency level.
This
Correct.
Is that
Yeah.
dependent on content? Does that change from math to English to?
Yes,
It
yes.
does.
Yeah,
Yes.
every test is specific.
And they take all the entire cohort of kids and put them all in and say this is where the cut score is. So that can adjust each year depending on where they want to set it. It takes some time to figure out where that right spot is, but once they set it, that's the standard that's set for the.
But again, if we go back to the middle school, that cut score is set based upon whatever class they were in, and then they're all averaged together. Whereas in 10th grade, regardless of what class you're in, you're taking the same test.
Right. So that's the 7 through 8, or 3 through 8 is RISE, and it's based on the course that they took. And Aspire 9th and 10th is you're in that grade, you take that test.
So if you're in calculus, you take the same class as if you were in the same test as if you were in a remedial math class.
Right.
Can we also just really quickly review growth? Remind everyone how growth is determined.
Okay, growth is determined. What they do is they take a student where they're at, and they determine what progress they would have to make in order to have 1 year's growth. And it's based upon where the student is. So a lower achieving student isn't going to have to make the same growth as a higher achieving student. They're all related. They take all those, put them in a big algorithm, and they calculate what the mean growth should be for a kid, and then that's the cut.
They call it student growth percentile. And then they look at each individual student growth percentile and for the school, and then they look at the median growth. And that's where we get these numbers for growth.
And that's why it's 40 instead of 50.
It's a percentile, not a percent.
Yeah.
Again, here's our student group. One thing with this, if you'll note, in 2019, pre-COVID, 8.6, language arts, 7.1, 5.3. For language arts and mathematics, we still haven't regained where we were for that student group pre-COVID. So that's something that we might want to look at targeting. The schools might want to look at targeting. We are still following a trend with the state. This year we were higher than the state. Last year we weren't. So there is a targeted area of improvement.
So that means
Yeah.
that only 6% of our ELO kids in language arts are at or above proficiency.
Correct.
Correct.
It's not what it is, is it?
Yeah.
No, and that's why it is the focus of a lot of our schools. A lot of our schools have made that their student group focus. In fact, almost every school that Brandon and I have been out to, that is the student group that they're focusing on, is that L population in hopes of increasing that proficiency level.
So is the problem that they don't know math, or is it problem that they don't know English?
Well, and that's the beautiful thing about the dashboard, is that they can take the scores that the kids have, make a student group, and then map that to WIDA scores, and they can tell, okay, is this kid a 1 on WIDA or is he a 5 on WIDA? If he's a 1, then you have to start beginning addressing the language. We got to get this kid's language ability up. If he's a 5, that's a math skill that he doesn't have. Now we can address the math skill. So that's the beautiful thing about the dashboard. It allows you to correlate the data in order to target kids specifically. What might be causing that kid not to be successful? You know, you can do the same thing with attendance. Is he a non-attender or is he an attender?
And schools are already making plans and making great strides for these students, and we've seen a lot of growth in the last year because they are focusing on student groups. That's why we've seen a lot of growth in some of those schools.
Pleasant Grove Junior is doing some phenomenal things with theirs because they've seen a huge increase in their ELL population. It's like almost tripled within the last several years. So this is a student group that they're focusing on, knowing that these kids generally don't perform at the same level.
Because you can have high growth with a student group and they're still not meeting a proficiency rating of 3 or 4 on the test. But they've still made growth year over year, so they're making strides.
Okay, post-secondary readiness. Okay, as we mentioned before, these are the 3 areas that measure post-secondary readiness. As we look at the percentage of students who achieved an ACT of at least 18 composite, we can see that Alpine exceeds the state average significantly, and we can see that Lone Peak has the highest percentage of students that have an ACT of at least 18. Graduation rate. Not available for the state yet. They haven't calculated that yet, but Brandon has calculated all this for us, and this is what's been submitted to USBE. But typically, you can see that Alpine outperforms the state in graduation rate. Lone Peak had the highest graduation rate last year. Westlake has the highest graduation rate over the last 3 years. And Polaris, in the last 3 years, jumped 10%. Again, phenomenal growth with the work that Polaris is doing to get those kids through. I remember it used to be down in the 60s. So to get to where they're at is again, phenomenal work with the people over at Polaris.
I have a question, because I know it's just focused on the 3 areas that determine if they're ready, but how come we don't assess like academic scholarships? Does it not show a sign of or determine post-secondary?
That would be a question for
Readiness?
USBE.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
theirs, not
Yeah,
necessarily ours.
this,
Okay.
what we're looking at is the USBE school report card data, and this is what they use to determine when they give a school a ranking. Okay, it's going to be coming out pretty shortly, and every school's going to get a score, and this is what determines that.
Mark, you're on that, right? Okay, write that down.
Okay, AP. We wanted to show a little bit of what our middle schools are doing. Vista Heights has seen significant growth in their AP. They do have the Chinese and Spanish AP there in 9th grade, but what they've really done is they've added that world history AP, and they have like over 100 kids in there. So that's where most of that growth is coming from, is doing that, getting that kids that college experience at an earlier rate.
Can I just ask, we have 3 junior highs going flipping back that have 0?
Yeah, and that's probably because they don't have an immersion program that feeds to them, or they don't offer AP World. Because those are basically the 2 types of classes that would be offered at a middle school. You know, if you have a calculus kid, they generally will go to the high school and take that. If you have a chem, they'll go there and take it.
So it's limited at the middle school level how many AP courses they offer.
Yeah.
Okay, well that's.
So basically, this is saying that these 3 schools don't have AP World, and again, this might be an area that they might want to target, you know, as they begin to set their individual school goals.
That's an inequity that alarms me.
They also have way less students as well, right? So
Yeah, AF Junior has a ton of students. They're really packed in. I know that.
And sometimes it's a department level decision.
Yeah.
They just say, we don't have the expertise to offer that, or it hasn't been requested. Frontier also does not have 9th graders.
Correct.
Correct. So yeah, we would expect them not to have any. Good point, Superintendent. Yes?
Yeah, also, I know that at Lakeridge, we used to have a teacher who gave AP biology tests. But when he retired, no one else wanted to pick that up, so they didn't. So sometimes it depends on your teachers too.
And you will see that fluctuation where everybody knows the teacher makes the program. And if the teacher leaves, sometimes the program goes with it. But again, it could be a targeted area. Okay, high school. Lone Peak has the most AP students. They have the most exams. Skyridge has the highest pass rate. But if you look at the data really closely, who has the highest percentage of students in AP? Didn't notice. Okay? They have the highest percentage of kids in AP. That's indicative of the work that Joe Jensen was doing over there with regard to giving kids that college experience. Okay, concurrent. This is also used. I was able to get all of the data for all the schools. I just called UVU and they sent it all to me. And so we can see how our schools do compared to every other school that uses UVU for concurrent. Again, we can see Skyridge up here has the highest percentage of their kids taking at least 1 concurrent class. And they're only looking at seniors. So this is the percentage of seniors that have taken at least half a credit and got a C on it. Okay? By point of emphasis, Cedar Valley had the most improvement. They used to be down here last year, 2 years ago, and they made a consolidated effort to focus on concurrent, and they added almost 300 kids to their concurrent within 1 year, simply by making this a focus and an emphasis. So again, giving their kids a more college experience and the belief that they can do college.
It's really weird that the 3 Orem high schools should be at the bottom of that. Well, wait, that's not the bottom.
But
it's
percentage-wise. But we just met with Orem today, and guess what their focus is going to be? Concurrent. Yeah, Tammy's like, we want to do exactly what Cedar Valley did. We're going to be meeting with them within the next 5-6 days and going over how to have like a concurrent college fair, invite the parents in, get them excited, see what they can do to get more kids into concurrent.
That needs to go up for those 3 schools.
In meeting with, we're part of a K-16 alliance with UVU, and one of our K-16 alliance goals is minority enrollment in concurrent enrollment. So targeting that across UVU campuses and the feeders to look not only at all students, but what are our student groups and how are they enrolled, what percentage of our students, are starting to share that with our schools and our communities, and increasing enrollment of our minority students in concurrent enrollment.
And that's really important for schools like Mountain View and Orem and even Tiburon, because they have a higher, minority enrollment.
Concurrent enrollment tends to trend along zip codes, because as older siblings of people that have
Correct.
gone to college understand the importance of that, then they roll in those courses, and it's that first generation that's hard to get into that system and understand it. UVU understands the importance of it, because when they do that, they're more likely to head on to post-secondary opportunities. So it's a combined K-16 alliance goal to increase that enrollment.
It's building that college-going culture.
Yep.
And that's what Cedar Valley was facing. They were significantly behind everybody else, and they were concerned, and they called up and said, hey, what do we do to raise our AP? And I said, you don't raise AP, you raise concurrent. I said, you have a concurrent going population. I said, this is an untapped resource for you. And that's why they had this big fair. They had food trucks. They were giving away free things. They get all the parents out, selling them with regard to how much money they can save, because you can see it saves a significant chunk of change. So, and that's one of the reasons that they increase their concurrent significantly. And I believe all of our schools can do that.
And this is only through UVU. There's concurrent enrollment through other entities that we don't have data on.
Correct, but about 90% of our concurrent is through UVU, because they have first rights of refusal. Okay? All right, in conclusion.
So I won't go through all this, but I do want to highlight that Orem Junior has targeted their student groups well. They had the highest achievers in science for their L population, and then their SPED students were also highest in their student group. So that's just in the student group alone. And also, Westlake is got a high average for the last 3 years for graduation, around 96%. So something that takeaways from this, as we're focusing on our school improvement priorities and on the coherence map as a district, schools might want to focus on these student groups in secondary. Our English language learners, which we've pointed out, are economically disadvantaged students. Something of note is our female students aren't doing as well in mathematics as males, and our male students aren't doing as well in language arts as our females. So there's some other options out there for schools. Also, Alpine concurrent enrollment can definitely go up, and I think that's something that schools are starting to focus now on as they're catching fire in the district with getting kids excited about college.
Do we consider a 3 passing on AP?
Yes.
Yes, 3, 4s, and 5s.
Any other questions?
All right, we're going to turn it over to the elementary people, and they have really pretty slides. I bring that up because Scott was like, you need to make your slides prettier. And so I'm not
Send us the data when you get the.
You have the new data.
Oh, is it in my already? Okay. Yeah. Okay. Well, so they're going to update on
Maybe, just an observation.
Right.
Okay, we'll get started. Thank you for having us. We are so grateful to be here. Let's go to our next slide, Aubrey. I want to just introduce my team. They put a lot of work into this, and they analyzed a lot of data. We have more data than 20 minutes. And so at another time, we could dig deeper into some of this data. When you look at our team, you can see that we are all assigned a different division. And all the curriculum TSAs are assigned different divisions. So there's an assessment person with a division, a math person, science, etc. And if you go to the next slide, Aubrey. With the coherence map and the school priorities, we are supporting schools and divisions with the things that they need as they set their goals. And so each of us are assigned to a division. We help with data. We help with data analysis and protocols of how can teachers dig into the data to make instructional decisions, to make that change, to make progress. We go out with supervisors, we are at divisional meetings, and we are supporting that work. Go to the next slide, Aubrey. When I came into this position, the name of the position changed. Instead of Director of Assessment, it was Director of Curriculum, with an emphasis on assessment. That changed our lens of we are not just data people with numbers. We support curriculum. We work with the curriculum department, with math, literacy, science. We work with the equity department, with the GT department, with the DLI department, to better support our teachers. Now, if you look on here, we are providing divisional support with 3 priority meetings. As schools set their goals, we help them with data analysis. And I want to highlight my team with the Professional Learning Hour. They all give that professional development once a month. They are on those Zoom meetings with grade levels giving support, which is awesome. We have the New Teacher Academy. We are now supporting this process with new essential standards for ELA and math, helping our teachers target the standards and skills that we really need to look at. If you've seen the core, you know it's quite long. A lot of standards. You'll hear a teacher say, well, there's so much to teach. What can I teach well? That work will help drive what we do with our priorities as we look at what are the essentials that every kid should have in elementary. Our team also creates and supports district benchmarks. These are tools that teachers can use at any time to check on their instruction by standard for ELA, math, and science. We also provide, these meetings are called data lunches, where principals and coaches get on like a Google Meet, and we talk through data, different protocols that we have, and we support that way. And then we are constantly just helping with data support, and how teams can set a priority, which in most cases is literacy and numeracy. But after you set that goal, what are the essential skills you have to track to hit the goal? It's very easy to say, well, we want to be 80% proficient. But what are we doing each week to determine, okay, what are we tracking to make sure that we hit that long-term goal? My team has looked at all of the data from last year. You were sent a digital file of all of these celebrations for KEEP, Acadians Reading, Math, RISE, that's all of our assessments. And you'll see schools in your divisions that have some good celebrations and my grade level. We printed off some of the celebrations and some of the slides we will go over on here. So we're going to talk about today Acadians Reading, Acadians Math, and KEEP. These are assessments we just took, beginning of year. You're probably wondering, like, where are we at? How are we doing? And how did we do last year? So I'm going to turn it over to Jessie, and she will go through our Acadians reading data.
Hi.
Hi.
So we just included the state goals in here for you. So I'm not going to go over those because you've seen those before, but we did want to make sure they were in our presentation because this is something that we focus on in our priority meetings, things that come up, questions that we stick to and kind of look at with goals. But we're going to focus with me on Acadians reading. So this right here is going to show you proficiency and growth. Now remember, Acadians reading is a screener that focuses on early literacy skills. So we're kind of looking at the basics of reading. It goes K6 in our district. we have, right here is where we're at right now, where kids are coming in, so kindergarten first all the way down to 6th grade. And then this is where we were last year. So you'll see beginning, middle, and end of year in each of those little chunks. So you can kind of see where people started, where kids started, where they ended up. And then we also have growth. With Acadians reading and growth, what they do is kids get put kind of in a place where similar kids like them. And then they're not looking for a year's growth, they're looking for typical or better growth. So kind of they get put almost like in a cohort with kids similar to them, that scored similar to them at the beginning of the year, and then they say, these kids, this is considered typical growth. This is considered above typical growth. And that's what we're aiming for, is typical, above, well above typical growth. So this shows the percentage of kids that are either typical or above in each grade level. Now this goes on to our L students. So that was all students on that first one. This is just going to be our L students. So now we're looking at maybe a student group goal that the schools will look at. And you can see where they came in at this year. And then again, we're looking at last year proficiency, beginning, middle, and end, and growth. And then our last one we have here is our SPED students. So we break up all of our data that we do, we break up between those two specific student groups along with all students together. And again, where are our SPED students coming in? And then where are our kids last year? Keep in mind when we say SPED, that's anyone with an IEP. So we're dealing with so different kinds of IEPs, obviously. Yeah. Now, if this is our historical end of year proficiency data. So historically, where have we been the past 3 years for proficiency? Now, we were looking at this and we saw kind of a pattern of, oh, a lot of our grades this year are reaching some of the highest proficiencies that they have in the past 3 years, which is great. And the ones that weren't quite there are very close to where they've been before. So we're seeing some improvement with our proficiency, which is great. And this is again going to be all students, just so you know. And then this is comparing us to the state. So now you can look at us compared to the state. If it's green, that means it's equal or higher than the state proficiency. So you can see a bunch of green boxes, which is saying we're matched the state or we're above the state, and then we still have our stars of where that's our highest proficiency that we've achieved. So kind of can compare. And then the same thing with growth. All students, past 3 years, historical growth. Where are we? You can see that we've hit some of our highest growth measures, and we're really increasing just from last year, and even the ones that haven't hit that they increased on their last year's growth scores, which is great.
Question?
Yeah.
So on that last slide, you bolded an asterisk some, but 4th grade wasn't. Oh, because it was the highest.
It's the highest, yeah. So you can see that 2 years ago they achieved 62. So we're kind of trying to point out, like, look, we're getting increasing, not quite increasing on that one, but increasing from last year. Yeah.
So just a question. It seems like 2nd grade they always go down between beginning of year and end of year.
Yeah.
Do you have any idea why that happens?
It's kind of a trend that we're seeing. That's common. We have heard some theories about that. Maybe kids not quite getting into that, into the text as much and not being as fluent as we need them to be by that grade level. I know that it's a goal for a lot of schools, focusing on their 2nd grade. Like, why is that happening? I know a lot of times we spend a lot of time in kindergarten and 1st grade putting in a lot of effort, and maybe 2nd grade is just not quite. We got to get it pushing up to the 2nd grade, right? And get a reading in there too. But yeah, it's definitely something we've noticed. It's something that schools have.
But they're tested for different things at beginning of year versus end of year, right?
In 2nd grade?
No, it's not.
In 2nd grade, they have the same tests.
Okay.
Yeah. One of them does drop off at the beginning of the year. The 2nd grade does NW up at the beginning, and then it drops off. But the others are the same throughout the year.
Okay, so it's the same material they're being tested on.
Yeah.
Even though they've been instructed in, okay. All right, that didn't make sense to me, but.
It's not the same material, it's the same format, so they'll be given a different passage.
Well, that's a good way to say it. So it's the same process they're going through, different passage.
Same skills.
Yep.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good way to say it.
Jesse, I noticed the 4th grade and 6th grade also had a drop off. Is there, 2nd grade really jumped out to me, so I'm glad Mark asked that question. But are there's some reasons why we're seeing some of those changes also from beginning of year to end of year, where that tails off? Sixth grade, I could kind of see maybe why that would happen, but fourth grade was a surprise to me as well.
Yeah, it is interesting, and just so you're aware, third, fourth, fifth, and sixth, the assessment process is the same. It's exactly the same for all of those grades. Different passages, but they're going through the same process in all 4 of those grades. But yeah, we have noticed that fourth grade does tend to dip. Now this is on growth specifically. So sometimes we're noticing that, like the question we're asking ourselves is, why are they not achieving growth as much in upper grades as in lower grades? And they should, especially the way Acadians, like we were talking about, they're putting into groups with like kids, so they should be able to make growth every year, even if they're already high kids or if they're struggling kids, they should still be able to make growth every single year. So it's a great question. Okay, so this is state and district comparison with growth. Again, there's our one green box. I just want you to notice this. So we can see that this is something that we're focusing on. One thing we were talking about too with growth, I feel like over the past few years we've really hit more of the difference between proficiency and growth with like our coaches, our administrators, helping them to understand what the difference is. And we're starting to see an improvement in growth, and I think it's because they're more aware of it, to even look for it, and to kind of understand what it is. So hopefully we'll continue to kind of go up a little bit with our growth as we go on. I'm going to turn over to Aubrey unless there's anything I can answer before. She's going to do some celebrations, some highlights for you.
Okay, so just as Jason had mentioned at the beginning of the year, we looked at all of the data from last year, and we kind of pulled out some schools that we felt like we needed to celebrate. We have emailed you the whole list that goes through all the different grades, the different tests, the different student groups. But from that we emailed you, we pulled out a few highlights just to kind of show just a couple of those. They are based on like the highest end of year proficiency and then schools with the highest change. As Jason had mentioned, schools are starting to look at their priorities, and just as we know, when you have something as a focus and when you're tracking it, you will have better results, you will improve. So these are schools that have been tracking their literacy, and then their results are showing they're having higher proficiency. We'll go to the next one. Easy. Same thing with growth we've done. These are just the schools with the highest growth. Okay. Next one. Oh, and then I'll go back over math in a minute.
Okay, so jumping into Acadian's math, we're going to look through some similar looking graphs, but now showing math data instead of literacy. So if you want to go ahead. Here's same type of look. This is beginning of year this year, so you can see where students are coming in. Acadian's math is given first, second, and third grade district-wide, so that's why you see those 3 grades. And then we have last year, again, beginning, middle, end of year proficiency, and then growth on the bottom. That was for all students. Here's for our L students. You can see where they come in for this year, and then looking at last year, proficiency and growth. You'll notice kind of as we keep going, students are coming in at about the same level each year. Something interesting to notice. And then we have same information this time for our SPED student group, looking at where they came in beginning of year this year compared to last year, beginning, middle, end, and growth. Here's historical for Acadian's math. You'll notice this only has 2 years of historical data. We've only done it district-wide for 2 years. That's why there's only 2 years on there. And so you can see 2021 to 22 school year and then last year. And you'll notice proficiency and growth. And we've made progress in each grade level based on last year. So that's why they're all bolded, starred. We're seeing some great growth in proficiency as well as their typical or better growth across the board. Here's compared to the state. You'll notice our lovely green box here. You can see that we are making improvements. So there is room for continued improvement. We aren't quite at the state level, but you can see at a district level from year to year that we are making progress in both areas.
Okay, so just the same thing as the Acadians reading with our Acadians math celebration. These are the schools that have had a focus on math with the highest end of year proficiency and that highest change right here. And then on the next slide is just the schools. Go ahead, Jesse, to the next slide. Oh, the next are, these are the ones with the highest growth proficiency. Okay. Okay, so KEEP, just as a reminder, we look at the entry, and then at the end of the year we look at the KEEP exit. The KEEP is based on the preschool skills. We don't have any control over what preschool schools are coming in. We have a few that are in Alpine School District, but for the most part we can't control that. So teachers have to look at the skills when the students come in, and then they adapt throughout the year. You'll notice if we look at last year to this year, our entry is pretty similar, so we're seeing the skills about the same. And then numeracy, same thing. They're about the same. One thing that we do kind of point out is that, like, historically, our kinder students always do better on numeracy just because their brains are like wired to notice numbers and patterns first, whereas with literacy they have to be trained to make those connections. So that's kind of why numeracy is higher. These are for all students. And then our L students, you can see entry from last year to this year. And then SPED on the next slide, our entry from last year to this year. And that is all we have. Are there any questions that we can answer for you?
I don't know who best to answer this.
I know if you all want to come up.
Get the panel up there. Board Member King, who's not with us, sent me a text. And we're hearing this from others. So do you see, or where do you see the impact of the letters training on our literacy data? Someone comment on working with schools, working with teachers, looking at the assessment data. Is there, I've heard, just going around the cluster things, of anecdotal impact. One, do teachers feel more confident in teaching of literacy, but are we seeing that? What do you anticipate we will continue to see in our Acadians literacy data?
Yeah, okay. I'll take that one. We've been talking about, like, especially the professional learning hour has been a great opportunity, especially for us as a curriculum department, to get right into teachers, like a direct connection, and to take it from what they learned into the practical classroom and what they're doing in their classroom day to day. So that's been a great opportunity. Any PDs that we do, that practical application is just really important. So that's what we're really seeing that connection.
And do you have any feeling or sense of the difference that full day kindergarten has on achievement versus part B?
Yeah, it's definitely something we've been talking about because we have more full day this year. So we're looking at, we looked at the data at the end of the year and saw some good things going on, and we're excited to look more this year with more data points to look at for sure.
Yeah, our full day kinder outperformed our half day kinder last year, and I think we shared some of that data, and we can put that next to the slide. And so we are hoping with more full day, you're saying they're in school longer, they're getting more targeted instruction in literacy and numeracy to be able to, get higher than we've ever been.
And from your professional opinions, this is not my question, working with schools, working with data, two questions. One, why do we seem relatively struggle more in math as a district than we do in language arts compared to our counterpart districts and the state athletes? So any thoughts on that?
Working with schools the past 2 years, a lot of schools, our first year, pick literacy as their goal. As you point towards a goal, you tend to get better with that. Are we teaching math? Absolutely. We're getting better with it. But if you make a targeted goal that you're tracking, I think you can do better. This year, we have seen in our division meetings that schools now are saying, maybe we should look at numeracy as well with our school priorities and have a literacy and a numeracy goal. So then we're tracking those things. It's not just what we taught, and the byproduct is hopefully we get good results, but now we are being very, very targeted and deliberate with our practice.
There has been more of a district emphasis on literacy.
There has.
Given some state concerns that they expressed, the letter training came in to address that. So we're seeing fruits of that effort and attention on literacy, and we need not do the tyranny of or, the beauty of and it's both math and. And then,
tag on that for a second too.
please.
Is I feel like professional development wise it's been very focused. So teachers have been focused on in it. All the PD that they've gotten has been based on literacy too. I don't think that we've done a lot of math PD in quite a few years in my remembering. I've been here for a while. I won't say how long, but don't look at the color of my button either. Yeah, but I'm just saying I feel like it's been literacy PD wise has been a focus for that too. And we're getting back into that. Professional learning hour has provided us some opportunities to do math this year also, which I think is going to be a great opportunity.
And our challenge will not to drop the literacy as we pick up the numeracy.
Yes.
Last question. We see evidence of excellence here in specific grade levels. Have you come across a school that you see across multiple grade levels have cracked the code or found the secret sauce and they're getting high returns across grade levels?
That's a great question. We haven't isolated a school. I don't think, my remembering of the data that we looked at, I don't think there's a school at every grade level that's firing on all cylinders. But I think there are schools that have grade levels that are doing that, and we'd be happy to dig a little deeper into that data and make that, because I think that would be good.
We have identified, if you'll go back to some of that data, the Springside first grade team is off the charts in every area, and we actually have some meetings set up where we go in and we learn from them. They teach us what they're doing, and then we take that and we compare, and then we move forward and how we can help facilitate spreading that across all the grade levels.
The state is now releasing to a group of the BYU partnership. The state is releasing statewide data by grade level to us, so we can start looking at comparison across the 5 districts that feed into that partnership to say, can we learn from other districts to see where we have evidence of excellence at a grade level. And I think that culture that we're trying to build here is certainly grade level by grade level. The more you get that shared content in the same room, learning from each other, but also schools learning from schools to say, here's the culture, here's the professional development, here's the routines that we engage in that create the culture and now create the outcomes. And so both at the grade level, what's the culture of that grade level, the behaviors that are contributing to that success, but also are you starting to see, or can we see schools that are developing those attitudes, beliefs, and values that significantly drive performance across all grade levels. I think that's the excellence crisis that we're striving for.
I'm curious, do we see any correlation by cluster between the elementary math scores and the 10th grade math scores?
Off the top of my head, I don't know. We have that data. So
I mean, he's even done the cross-pollination.
So I think that's a great question. We will get that to you.
Yeah, I'm just curious.
We do have cluster data for math and ELA, so we will get that so you have it. So then you can look at the secondary.
Yeah, I'm just wondering how much of an effect the math scores in elementary are affecting the kids as they move on up through the system.
That's a great question. We have that, and we will get that to you.
Thank you.
So I just have a question. This may sound silly, but would you mind just telling me a little bit about yourself? Like, did you start as an elementary teacher? What's your background educationally? I hear little tidbits of, oh, the brain is developing in this way or something like that. And would you mind just introducing yourselves that way? And then maybe relating an experience that was really satisfying to you where you worked with a team and they were able to improve or something like that? I'm sorry, I just wanted to get to know you a little better.
Yeah. So Aubrey Lundquist, I taught 5th and 6th grade for 9 years. half. And then I was a coach over at Shelley for 2 years, and then this is my second year on the data and assessment team. And I would say the biggest exciting moment for me when I was a coach, I had the 6th grade team that when I went into coaching, the previous coach was like, good luck with 6th grade, like they don't look at data, they don't want to do collaboration or anything, and I was like, okay, challenge accepted, like that is my grade that I'm going to look at. And they became like my best friends. We looked at data all the time, we did protocols together, and it was cool to see their data grow and how much closer they got as a team and how much stronger their PLCs were.
I'm Mackenzie Smith. I taught 3rd grade through 6th grade for 8 years. I've been an innovative learning coach, an ELL coach, curriculum TSA, and now assessment TSA. I would say a valuable experience, something that just stands out to me in the moment. Last year, I was an ELL coach, and I worked with a 6th grade team who had 10 newcomers that just throughout the year showed up. They were from different countries, brand new to the country, and the team came and said, how do I help these students? I know that they have knowledge, I know that they are capable of learning, but how do we make that happen? How does that become visible? And so we worked on what instructional practices do we incorporate in our day that are beneficial to all students, but will especially support our newcomer students. How do we support their learning, their confidence, their language abilities? And in using those practices and in tracking the data, they saw phenomenal results. Not every student reached proficiency at the end of the year, but there were very high levels of growth, and they had a couple students who scored a 4 on RISE at the end of the year. And they came and they were like, did not see it coming, sort of reaction, and talked about, but why did it happen? As a teacher, what moves did we make together with things within our control that supported the learning to happen on both sides? And that was really powerful.
Jessica Cannon. I've been in Alpine for 22 years. I have all this great hair. But I taught in the classroom for about 13 years, and then I've been lucky enough to be a PLC coach. I was a partnership facilitator, and then I came here to the district office as a curriculum specialist and then onto the assessment team, which has been great. And Springside, I helped open Springside, and that 1st grade team, we did bird training together, which we offered as a district. And I was with them, and wow, we dug into data and all that stuff, and I watched them grow, and they are a rock star team. So yes, I love that. I love to be part of that. I love that concept.
Sure, why not? Jason Croton. I taught 4th and 5th grade at Mount Mahogany in Consolo. I was an innovative learning coach, and then TSA in the research department at Dave Mallard. Principal at Greenwood Elementary, and now back here at the district office. The thing that I enjoy most is seeing students succeed. And as a teacher, leading a team, being part of a team, and seeing students' success is the most rewarding thing that you can have. When you talk about, Hattie talks about collective efficacy, right? And collaboration is key. One point inside that is teachers seeing success. If they see success once, then you're like, okay, I have confidence I can do that again and I can build on that. And we did that at both schools we were at. We were underperforming, and we started to look at data and track. And that's what makes the difference. Weekly tracking of data. And so that's why I'm excited about the priorities that we do. Because we are making goals and we are tracking each week, each month. And so it's not a surprise at the end of the year, like we're hoping they pass, we know if they will pass and what their growth will be by the way we track. So that's, I'm in a perfect position, I love it.
Thank you, I really appreciate that.
Okay, another question. So we hold you to high expectations. You do excellent work. What would you hold us to? What can we do to provide better support from the board, from the superintendent, from our senior leadership team? What would you wish from us that would allow you to do your work better? In terms of vision, in terms of support, resources?
Big question.
We had letters for 2 years, which is great. Now we transitioned to this professional learning hour, which is fantastic. We would like to see that continue. Getting access to teachers, teacher level, having conversation, that's where it makes the difference. The teacher is the biggest point of access for a student. That's where we have success, is with the teacher. Once you remove yourself to a coach, principal, then there's not that direct connection. I would say if we can have that access with our teachers each year, this is like, it's been great so far. So that's what we have.
Anything else?
Another thing we have talked about is like we feel like our catalog doesn't have a lot of teacher PDs for curriculum opportunities. We've even been talking about what we could do, because we don't just want to say, oh, it's a problem, but we were talking about what we could do to increase that. But I don't know if even people know that that's something that they could come and teach a class to other teachers. It'd be awesome if that was more available, or how that process works. Because I've looked into it, and it's taken me it took me like 3 weeks going through like 5 different people just to try to figure out like, okay, what do I have to do to get a class into the catalog? What do I have to do to like hit the requirements, things like that. But all of our teachers are doing the best that they know how, absolutely, every day, right? So giving them an opportunity to increase their capacity and have that self-efficacy, I think is very helpful, along with the professional learning hour, which is trying to get our knowledge and everything we learn down to the level down the road, kind of thing is sometimes hard.
Do you have enough funding for science materials?
Can you say that again?
Yeah, science is very material heavy. Like you have to have stuff to teach science. Do our teachers have the stuff they need? Do they have the materials they need at every grade level? Was there state funding for that when the new science corps came in?
I personally do not know. I would have to ask Sam Rencher if he knows, but we will write that down.
No.
That information.
Anything from secondary?
But before you jump to secondary, I have a quick question. So on your professional learning hour, what tools do you have in place to ensure that it's high quality and it's continuing to meet teacher needs?
You know that it's high quality because you do it, right?
I feel like I'm talking to my teacher. It's definitely the curriculum department over there, like all the TSA, the literacy TSAs, and it's a literacy week or a month. They all get together and they've been researching. So this one coming up is specifically about the lower grade scoring segmentation. I'm on the lower grade team, so and the literacy team gets together and they have been researching and making sure that they have the most recent research out there of what is the highest impact and what we should be doing in classrooms. And that's what they're presenting to the teachers. When it's a math month, then the math team does the same thing, and they are the ones that lead out that. So they train all of us to be on the team and to participate in that and to learn from them as we teach the teachers. But they're really going into their own research as a team in their curriculum and then presenting that data forth of what they've learned and forward to whatever all the teachers.
Do you have the teachers then do an evaluation of the training and then go off of that feedback too, or?
At the end of every for the hour, they take a survey. We've gotten a lot of survey results back that are really good. Most of them are all positive. But we have gotten a couple like, are we going to do this later? Are you going to, like, I'd love to see this modeled. I'd love to see this like in a classroom setting. So taking what we've already done and asking like, can we go further with this even? So yeah, they give us feedback of whatever they want to tell us after the
And I'll just add to that, one thing that we try really hard to do is make it grade specific. So I'm in the 6th grade, so they're doing lower grade literacy, but in 6th grade we're focusing on morphology, which was something that our feedback was really specific. Like, that's great, but I want it to be 6th grade focused. So that's every time we meet, okay, how does this benefit a 6th grade teacher?
And just one thing to add to that, it's easy to get caught up in just content. We want to make sure we are supporting good instructional practices that can be transferred to the way we teach. We work with Anya in the equity department, and they give us elevation strategies. Here are strategies that we can use with not only owning segmentation, but with other content that we're teaching. So we are working with, as a group.
that's what I wanted to add. This year they started integrating pedagogical practices that are high yielding for multilingual learners, for students with disabilities. Because we know when we differentiate, all students benefit from the instruction. When we don't, only those that have a command of the English language or that have background knowledge, extensive background knowledge, only benefit. So with this integrated approach, they're working with what does this look like for gifted students? What does this look like for our multilingual learners, our students with disabilities? And I watched the last one and I loved it. It's beautiful to see it come to fruition. So kudos to you. Yeah.
So not so much as something to start doing, but to continue doing, as we've seen more of a results lens the last year and a half, we've seen most of our schools are making good growth. And so we would suggest that we keep doing what we're doing and adding to that and keep to those 7 tight essentials that we've started. I think that is working and we can see that in the data. So I'm really excited the direction that we're going at the moment. And I feel in my heart that we're doing the right thing.
Gary, you can do that. Thank you.
Okay.
Scott, thank you. Thank you to your team. Great work. I think this is, it's fun to see that we're going in a positive direction in many areas, and also good to see that we're not as good as we need to be in other areas. I think we need to confront the brutal facts and learn and get better and develop that culture in Alpine School District where we openly look at data and we use data to surface great questions, and we strive to get better and improve learning for our students. So appreciate your teams and their presentation. Okay, President Hacken, we'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you all for coming. That was very, very helpful to all of us, and thank you for sending us your slides so that we'll have that information. So now we have about... That's good. We have about 15 minutes for Ada to do board governance with us. We are looking at the book Nuance, pages 29 to 43, if anyone else has it. We're looking at some case studies.
Yeah, this is the point where we say, you would not be offensive if you decided
to leave. Yes.
Thank you. 22 beans.
That's right. So I'm trying to bring up my PowerPoint.
How about green?
You have a PowerPoint?
I do.
I'm dazzled.
I think I should get it back to slide 1 first, though. Okay, so this is our book that we are studying as a board this year. It's a leadership book, why some leaders succeed and others fail. And I was assigned to cover chapter 2, which includes case examples 2 through 4. So just as a review, I'm going to take this out. I don't know. Anyway, just to review, the framework for nuanced leadership includes first, joint determination, second, adaptability, and third, culture-based accountability. So this chapter focused on joint determination, which it defined as it involves developing unity of purpose and action and is a continuous process. So there's a couple of quotes by one of the researchers that they cited, Mary Parker Follett. I just want to kind of get your take on this. There's no such thing as unity. There is only unifying. Or legitimate authority flows from coordination, not coordination from authority. So Anybody have any thoughts on those two quotes? I kind of think we've seen it demonstrated here today in the leadership of our teams here as they have developed relationships with people and have coordinated, and their authority flows to them, not because of credentials per se, but because of the relationships that they're building with educators in our district.
So is that bottom quote more of a bottom-up process than a top-down? Is that what we're saying?
Yeah, very much so.
I thought, and maybe I read wrong, but it seemed like it was a middle approach, is what they called it. It wasn't starting at the bottom, it was starting in the middle.
I think it's that the purposeful interaction that leads to that, not purposeful direction, purposeful interaction.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to go pretty quickly through these first case examples. The first one was the city of Ottawa, their Catholic school system, which is a large one. I have family members that go to this school district.
I was jealous of this school district.
Because
they're roughly the same size as us, but they have double the number of schools.
I saw that.
And geographically, they're more compact, I would say. Yeah. That's an interesting observation. So they had a goal that they were going to go for deep learning, not just for good test scores, which they already had, and not for a better graduation rate, which they already had, but they wanted to go for deep learning, which was a brave thing for them, which means they wanted to incorporate character, citizenship, collaboration, communication, creativity, and critical thinking into the rest of their content. And the way they did it was a slow implementation. I think they had 7 pilot schools at first, and then they expanded it to another 8, strengthened their framework, and then on the 3rd year, they had a full rollout. So what are some of the things that we could learn from their from that experience? These are just some that I saw. Can you just kind of think back on the things that they learned?
I'm curious, on page 25, it said 100% of the 83 schools use the school conditions rubric. I would like to see that rubric. I'm curious to know what's included in there as part of their supervisory officer school visits. Do we have anything like that? Do we do that?
Have we ever collaborated with this district or communicated?
I'm just curious to know what
You
that
denied our
rubric-
visit to Canada a couple of years ago. We
Oh.
had one like that. We were going to go via Iceland, but
And I
have
just,
not
I was
collaborated.
talking about a different district that
We're
was
willing to.
the same.
Hey, send it.
It is the same size.
No, it's in number 4.
No, number 4 is.
No, winter months.
Sarah, we-
It's 83 schools and 40,000. Again, jealous. Yeah.
Anyway.
Because really.
Well, let me just read through some of the takeaways that I got from this case study. Learning took place at all levels, and this is something they said that must be modeled, where the principals are learning along with the teachers that they're seeking to instruct. Where was that? We want principals to model for their teachers and teachers to model for their students. We are co-learners. Second, that not only are they aligned on paper, but they are coherent in practice. And they kind of said that means that they know what each other are doing. And it's not just, they're not disconnected. Draw on the knowledge of the whole system. Greater engagement is the result. More self-direction, increased collaboration, and more leadership capacity. And they talked about finding the best ideas among their teachers. They said leadership can plant seeds, but the germination actually occurs in the classroom, and that's what we heard from Jason, that they really like to be in the classroom, close to the classroom, and they would adapt it to local conditions. And I'm hoping, if I just click on this, will this video play? I hope it will.
Unless it gets blocked.
Okay.
Try to escape.
Wait.
Is it coming up on your screen?
If you exit
Here we
out
go.
your slide.
Exit off your slide.
Yeah, gotta exit out of your slideshow.
Imagine your childhood hopes and dreams for the future. Now in
Okay, help me exit out of the slideshow.
Escape.
Escape. Oh, then I have to go back into it. That's it. Where's my tech guy?
What's the link?
Just trying to show this video that it was linked, but
While she's doing that, I have a question for those of you guys that have taught before, but think back to, well, maybe 25 years ago, when in Alpine, did we just basically focus on proficiency and standards and not necessarily growth? Or has growth always been part of that? It hasn't, has it?
Growth is event came on probably
Totally.
12 years ago.
But so this is my question. Was that so discouraging for teachers? Every time you had like an office for standards of education come in, tell you weren't doing good, and they were focusing only on proficiency but ignoring the growth. Right? Yeah. So this brings me to this point in this book. The saddest paragraph on here, and I don't want to be negative, but I was like, oh, was on page 40. And it's like 1, 2, 3, like the second to last paragraph, it says, teachers fell to their knees and wept for joy. Some staff
I love that
described it as life-changing moment. But one teacher in particular said they felt like they could now hold their head up high and talk proudly about who they are and where they work for the first time in their career. Now, there's two ways you can look at that. A part of me, my heart sank a little bit because I thought, but you've always been amazing. But we're focused so much sometimes on this level that we
If you're
forget
struggling with
about those
osteoporosis or
individual levels,
osteopenia,
right?
you need to watch this
But,
video.
I mean,
It
you
may
guys
surprise
can
you,
speak
but
to
the
it
biological
when you're
difference between
teachers.
having normal
And you combined and you finally were able to say, we're making growth.
imagine
You don't know these little kids in my class that are individuals. We're focused on the whole thing, but
you were jumping ahead. But yes, it's very.
well, you know,
but that is so
segue,
poignant.
Sarah.
That is so
Segue,
poignant.
Sarah, just
But
segue
thank
into
you
it.
for us taking up a filler here. Here's a video from this Ottawa Catholic school system that I think is very, very powerful.
the wonder of a child. Imagine their childhood hopes and dreams for the future. Now imagine the world today. The world is changing and changing fast. So how do we best prepare our young learners for tomorrow? Maybe we should ask her.
We need to prepare our students for the 21st century. And the 21st century is demanding a skill set that's different than the past. We need to develop students who are critical thinkers, who can engage with the world they live in and see themselves within it as citizens. They need to be able to be creative and innovative. They need to be able to communicate their thinking and work with others in authentic and purposeful ways. There's so many jobs that are being created every day that didn't exist 5, 10 years ago. And they're requiring these skills that students need to be able to have. They need these transferable skills.
Deep learning unleashes every student's potential. It gives them the skills to solve the complex issues facing us today and in the future. We know they are ready to make a difference in this world, and we know who will get them there. Deep learning, quality learning that sticks with you for life.
Wasn't that awesome? They just articulated, the vision for learning. That was great. Go to my presentation first. Okay, now I have to go back to slide.
Cancel.
Okay.
But did you get my point?
So
Is there
one-
no, I couldn't.
What was your point?
I feel like you didn't quite articulate how strongly you feel about it.
Well, I'm just saying it hurt my heart a little bit because I thought, no, I mean, these are the teachers that work and can see, all the things that kid's fighting for every day and trying to do, and they see that little growth, and then to have someone come in and say, that sinks your heart. That just made me sad. And so it was good news, but yet sadly, I don't know. It
What
hurt my
the
heart.
trouble was, like when we had the CRTs, the proficiency rate was a lot higher. We were seeing scores in the 80s and 90s on proficiency across the state on that. And then when we came in with SAGE, it plunged, and that's where it just knocked the wind out of teachers. So even though we added growth, we knocked the wind out of them as we just set the cut scores so low that it was just hard to do that. And we're just now, what are we, 15 years later?
Yeah.
15 years later, starting to get where we're seeing 60 and 70% proficiencies.
The other thing I have to remind myself is that scores don't tell the whole story, and we all know that.
Bingo.
They don't tell the story. I was thinking about a little boy in my class who was really, 5th grade, he was really struggling, and it wasn't like him. And so I finally called his mom and said, I'm seeing a real change in his behavior. He's really singing. And she said, well, there's some things you need to know. His grandmother moved in to die. Mm-hmm. She is terminal. She's just, and I just had a baby last week. And he's like, what is this little boy thinking about in class? It's probably not math. He's worried about his grandma. Will she be alive when he walks home? Stuff like that. So there are so many other things that can and do affect a kid's learning that I think we don't want to lose sight of the kids, the reality of what they're facing at home sometimes.
Okay, I'm gonna just skip to the last case example, which was this English school that was honestly. It was a small special measures elementary academy, 70% free and reduced lunch kind of equivalent, 30% special needs, 33% transient, low academic scores. It said it had never, in ever being evaluated, it never achieved a higher, it had always been low scores. So I just want you to remember what did this educator do. Her name was Marie Claire Bretherton. And I'll just go through it. First of all, she didn't fire anyone. Do you remember what it said about that? I mean, that's the tempting thing to do, is just to go in and clean house.
So that's works together to do that. It's not a long lasting.
It's not a long-lasting solution, right? It says you can't fire your way to Finland. In other words, you can't achieve high levels by firing everybody. It rarely lasts, and before long, the same culture takes over if you don't address it. So she didn't fire anyone. She hired a new assistant principal, and then she interviewed everyone.
And she also said that if you rehearse the positive, you rehearse the possible. You rehearse the vision, and it helps you realize.
That was her self-talk. But listen
But I think that
yeah.
led into what she was doing, because she said we didn't give any negative feedback. We didn't
Yeah,
go in.
for 8 weeks.
Yes, they didn't give negative feedback.
But listen to what she heard in those interviews. This is the bottom of page 35. I interviewed every single member of the staff, from cleaner to deputy head, just asking them everything they could tell me about the school. There were so many challenges. They said to me, whatever you think, you know, it is not going to work here. We have tried everything. These children just are not capable of succeeding in school. The challenges they face in life are just too big. That's what they believe. Isn't that? That's just tragic. But that was their reality. That was their reality.
So before that, the thing that I liked is that she realized that what she was doing at her previous school was not going to work there. And I think sometimes we see that where somebody has connected with their community and they've dialed in with their culture and they're just hitting it out of the park. And you can't just take one principal and drop them in another place and think they're going to have those results. So I really appreciated that she recognized that early on, because I think when you change that approach, that is like it's a game changer.
So see, she didn't just supplant everything she'd done before and impose it on them. Wonderful. No negative feedback, and she addressed the teachers' needs first before she went to content, didn't she? It said the teachers were not managing classrooms well. They didn't know how to keep their kids in the classroom. So first she addressed classroom management. And another thing she did, and this is on page 39, is that she built on the strengths of the teachers, the strengths they had. Do you remember how she handled this teacher that had been teaching the longest and who seemed to be intractable in their ways? She found the thing that he did well, and the 3 things he did well, and said, would you go talk to this other teacher? She needs your help. And then she can teach you about, skill D, I think it talked about that. But
she made them their own little team.
Yeah. She helped them develop relationships within the staff, and then she reached out beyond that and created relationships with other schools, with other students from other schools, and ultimately with the community. So she just did some phenomenal work.
I love the expectation. As soon as you have something to give, go share it.
Yes.
But you didn't have to be perfect in everything. But you had something to share, go.
Capacity given.
That's what she talked about with an alliance, right? You get everyone to it. I really liked earlier where she talked about the first thing she did was she knew she had to build hope, right? And so coming in and doing that first.
Well, in closing, I just wanted to, this is a quote from Marie Claire Bretherton. Putting the school improvement bit to one side, it was actually the transformation of humanity that really meant something to me in this school. It restored professional confidence. It's given them life. It's given them hope. It's given them purpose. I think I've probably underestimated in the past the power of your own sense of vision and hope, your own mental discipline, and your own belief. That, for me, was a massive learning curve. And I think in Alpine School District, that's kind of our challenge as a board, to bring our vision, our sense of hope, our sense of mental discipline and belief in these students and in our teams. So I hope that we translate this type of enthusiasm and vision. And I love the paragraph that you referenced, Sarah, where she just said, at the end, she says, it was the most incredible moment of my life when she announced the achievement scores to her school. It really was. We answered the question, was it possible to restore and redeem a school without sweeping it out? So what a wonderful note to end you.
Thank you. Very, very nice job. Appreciate that. A lot of things to think about there. And now, let's break for dinner.
I like that notion of the leadership.
She changed me.
So let's start first with the Pledge of Allegiance, and that will be led by Eric Woodhouse. So if you'll please stand.
Please repeat after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States.
Now we will have an inspirational thought and reflection from Candace Frazier. Thank you, Candace. Before we begin, we'd like to excuse Julie King. There's an empty seat right here. I'm missing her already. She is not well tonight, and we wish her a speedy recovery, and we do miss her. But tonight we've got some really, really fun recognitions. First, we're going to do the RISE recognitions, and then we're going to do the children's art, or the young people's art, student art. The RISE Award is one that we started last year. And any employee or any person in the district can nominate anyone else in the district for this award. And last year we had 499 people that were nominated, and every one of those got some kind of a certificate and so on. So tonight we have 4 people that we are honoring with the RISE Award. RISE stands for Remarkable, Inspiring, Selfless, and Encouraging. So when I read your name, we'd like you to come right up here, along with the person who nominated you and your principal and the supervisor of your district. We'd like to have your school. We'd like to have you all come up here, and we'd like to have you stay here until all 4 people are up, and then we'll take pictures, and then you as an audience can take pictures with us. All right. So the first one, Jordan, over to you.
It's Morgan Watcher. She's a teacher at Thunder Ridge Elementary. If you'll go ahead and come on up.
Thanks, Morgan. Come on up.
She was nominated by Katie Patrick. Katie wrote, "She is such an amazing teacher to the small group autism class. This year she had I must be missing a word. I'm sorry. This year she had a rough class, maybe. She deals with screaming fits that can last hours and deals with them with such care and calmness. She is able to know all of her students' quirks and able to help them each individually." Thank you so much, Morgan.
Okay, the next one comes from Canyon View Junior High, so let's have Teresa Cheney come up with her principal and supervisor. Teresa was nominated by Emily Coleman, who's a parent. If Emily's here, she can come up as well. Emily wrote, "Mrs. Cheney obviously cares deeply about her students and their success in her classes. After my daughter started junior high with the 504 plan, Mrs. Cheney contacted me and requested a meeting to learn more about how she could help my child succeed in her class. Orchestra was her favorite class last year, and she is excited to continue learning a new instrument this year with Mrs. Cheney. But what's most remarkable to me is how my child's face lights up when she sees Mrs. Cheney or has a chance to interact with her. Thank you, Mrs. Cheney."
Great. Could Angela Nuttall and Scott and the supervisor come on up? And let's see, is Mackenzie Alvarez here? That'd be great. Okay, great. Angela's teacher at the
Alpine Elementary. She's nominated by Mackenzie Alcatraz. Mackenzie wrote, Mrs. Nettle deserves the Rise Award because she has risen to the challenge of setting each of her students up for success. Mrs. Nettle has gone above and beyond to pay special attention to my child's needs and accommodate them instead of making him or me feel like he is a hassle or that the extra steps she has to take with him are too much. She makes us feel seen, supported, and most importantly, loved. I hope she knows how deep my appreciation for her is. She does her very best to make school a positive experience, even for those who require a little extra every single day.
Next, we have Megan Wooten from Sage Hills Elementary, and she was nominated by Brian Dosa. Brian wrote, Megan Wooten embodies this award and its legacy. She selflessly works around the clock with my son's class, constantly encouraging their academic growth and inspiring their character growth. As a volunteer in the classroom, I saw her efforts firsthand and applauded the remarkable role model she was for my son and his classmates. My son repeatedly brings up life lessons and principles he learned from her in her intentional discussions on those topics. She constantly went above and beyond as an educator, mentor, and leader, and deserves recognition. Thank you, Megan.
Now it's picture time, and we're going to do two things. We're going to get all the candidates in the school board, and then parents or family, then you can take pictures after. If you'll all turn around and we'd like to shake your hands. If there are families and friends here to support these teachers, we invite you to stand up and we'll give you a hand too, because we know that our teachers don't work in isolation, their families are a big part of their support. And the same is true of students. So now we've got such a wonderful opportunity. Every time we come to the district office, we walk down the halls and we see artwork. And it just amazes me, the quality and the beauty of the artwork at all grade levels, from little guys up to high school kids who are probably going to be art majors. We have remarkable talent right here in this room. So we'd like to celebrate them, and these are all from Reese's Cluster. So Sarah, let's hear some names.
Okay, so students from the Lone Peak Cluster.
Okay, when we say your name,
when we
come up.
Yeah, they'll bring them out.
They'll bring them in.
Students from the Lone Peak Cluster have had artwork displayed here at the district office for the past few months, and we would like to thank all of the students for allowing their artwork to be displayed in our hallways. Their artwork has transformed the district office to an art gallery of sorts, or like a museum, adding color and beauty for all to enjoy. And quite often you can see patrons and employees stopping by to admire. It's been wonderful. We first would like to recognize the people from Alpine Elementary. So if Alpine Elementary students want to come in, are they entering? if you'll raise your hand when I call your name so we know who is who. Sophia Roach. Sophia here. Anna Willis. Evelyn Schultes. Georgiana. Georgiana, how do you say your last name, Georgiana? Svetko? Okay, wonderful. Jordan Branch and Spencer Bergquist. Congratulations, student. Wonderful job. Next up, we have students from Cedar Ridge Elementary School. They'll come in. Let's see. I'm going to read off all the names, but if I read your name, you guys raise your hand, okay? Charlie Kennedy, Isaac Allred, James Ragonge, Maya Stubbs, Peyton Warner, and Zoe Lems. But we've got 2 out of the few, so good job. Congratulations, students. We want to get your picture. We adjusted you. Next, we have students from Deerfield Elementary. So our Deerfield students, you can come in. Students, when I say your name, go ahead and raise your hand. We have Alice Anderson, Colby Denning, Gwen Stevens, Indy Frazier, Kevin Flores Quiros, Maddie Holly, and Palmer Acey. Congratulations, students. Now we will have students from Highland Elementary. Okay, students, when I read your name, go ahead and raise your hands so we know who you are. Archer Sullivan, Bryson Dodds, Charlotte Shepard, Evelyn Pinson, Kalani Hing, Lucy B., Madeline Bernier. Next up, we have Lone Peak. Now, this one's kind of tricky because some of these art pieces were submitted later in the spring, and so some of these kids have graduated. So if they're not here, some of them have moved on to college and maybe are majoring in art. I don't know, so we appreciate the ones that are here. And you have the one. But, way to be here. I'm going to go ahead and just read off the names anyway, just because everyone deserves a little celebration here because of their talents. Benson Tracy, Hannah Fredrickson, India Luna, Ivy Smith, James Christensen, Macy Bennett, Porter Witt, and Savannah Taylor. Congratulations. The next school we have is Mountain Ridge Junior High. Mountain Ridge. Okay, students, when I call your name, will you guys raise your hands so we know who you are? Ava Garcia, Ann Daniel, Ava Parrish, Josie Strong, McKenna Laramia, McKinley Clements, Mira Graham, Siri Williams, Summer Curtis, Charity Curtis, and Tiara Solaya? Did I say that right? Okay. She's not here. Oh, okay. I said Siri, but that's her name. Sorry. Wonderful. Congratulations, students.
when we shake your hand now. Next up, we have Ridgeline Elementary School. We don't have all the students that are going to be celebrated this evening from Ridgeline, but if we call your name, will you raise your hand so we know who you are? Bex McLean, Bryn Dowdle, Ella Jones, Malachi Gertz, Peyton Gurley, Quinn Hightower, and Telly Balstead. Next up, we have Timberline Middle School. Hey, you guys, will you raise your hand when we call your name? We have a lot missing from your group, but Aurora Kendall, Brielle Smith, Cecilia Hawks, Chiara Taylor, Daniel Ball, Jason Barton, Lauren Bunker, Lucas Anderson, Mary Westman, Rebecca Schmidt. Our last group for tonight would be Westfield Elementary. your name, students, will you raise your hand? We have Aubrey Williams, Bennett Wright, Eva King, Lily Bucod, Lila Horan, Sophie Gill, and Tayson Dowse.
Next, we'd like to honor the high school state championships to date. Stacy.
We would also like to honor state champion teams from various schools. Award certificates have been sent to the schools to be given to the student athletes during their recognition ceremonies. From Skyridge High School, we have the 6A girls tennis team champions. Also from Skyridge, we have the 6A girls tennis, first in singles, Bella Lewis, first in doubles, Kylie Sperry and Andy Armstrong, second in doubles, Sophia Bleak and Anna Erickson. And then from Orem High, we have the 4A girls state tennis champion, first singles, Maya Inoue, thank you. Second doubles, Madison Cockrell and Annabelle Baker. And also today, Skyridge High School's Unified Sports took first at their championship.
Okay, we have no community comments tonight, so we'll move into the business of the board. First thing we need to do is approve the minutes from last month. Do I have a motion?
I move that we approve the minutes from last month.
Thank you. Okay, it's been moved by Sarah and seconded by Stacy that we approve the minutes from last month. Do we have any discussion? Seeing none, let's vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Just waiting to see if Julie is going to vote here. Any opposed? The motion passes. Dr. Foxworth.
Thank you, President Hacken. You have received the claims for the month, and I recommend that you accept the claims.
Okay, I need a motion to accept the claims.
I move to accept the claims.
A second.
It's been moved by Joylyn and seconded by Mark that we accept the claims. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, let's vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Okay, it passes. Dr. Foxworth.
Next item is the routine business that you have received, which includes budget summary, an Alpine Foundation board summary, personnel hiring releases, student trip requests, LEA-specific licenses, and a sabbatical approval. And I recommend you are approving the routine business.
I have a motion to approve the routine business.
I move to accept the routine business.
Second? Second. Okay, it's been moved by Stacy and seconded by Joylyn. Is there any discussion?
Just wanted to indicate that one of our schools has written a grant that's been designated by the legislature for a teen center. And so we're very proud of Polaris High School for taking advantage of that grant opportunity.
Thank you.
I just wanted some clarification. Is this an approval of an exception to the sabbatical policy of the required 15 credit hours to Mr. Wong's request of 12?
It is not an exception because the project that he's doing as per board policy required board approval.
Thank you for the clarification.
Any other questions or clarification? Seeing none, let's vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. It passes. Thank you. Okay, action items.
Thank you, board members. We have two policies for action this evening. We'll invite Greg Brinkerhoff, Executive Director of Legal Services, forward. First is policy 3061, bids, publication, and time for keeping. Our recommendation is the retiring of that policy. And we'll first address that policy. Greg can answer any questions that board members have with respect to policy 3061 and our recommendation for its retirement.
So the main reason that we're seeking retirement of this policy is in our other policy that is attached to this one that comes right before it. We have adopted as a district the Utah Procurement Code for the state of Utah, and the state of Utah Procurement Code indicates within it the timelines for bids and retention of documents, etc. So this is duplicative because it's already contained in the Utah Procurement Code.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to retire policy 3061? I move that we retire policy 3061, bids, publication, time for keeping. Second. Okay, it's been moved by Sarah and seconded by Anna. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, let's vote. All in favor say aye. Aye. And opposed say nay. Okay, it passes.
Thank you, board members. The next policy, or action item, is policy 3053, audit of accounts, and we recommend your renewal of that policy.
Yes, this policy has hit its 5-year time frame for needing renewal or action on it, and we discussed this earlier today in our policy committee meeting. I'll let the members of the board or the committee lead this discussion.
First, I think I have a motion, then a discussion. So, do I have a motion to return this policy? Or renew this policy, excuse me, thank you. I move that we table policy 3053, audit of accounts. Okay, it's been moved by Joylyn and seconded by Stacy that we table this policy. Is there a discussion?
I think the correct terminology is we're tabling the discussion. We can't table the policy, but we are tabling the discussion until there's some further adjustments I understand the policy committee would like to make.
Yeah, so as we looked at this policy today, we would like to actually bring back all of the financial policies in one group, and really we have an opportunity as we're going through our 5-year renewal to really make them a tighter group of policies and more in alignment with state code and current practices. And so we'd like to bring them forward all together, and we'd also like a little bit of opportunity to maybe connect with the finance committee and do a little bit of collaboration before we bring those finance policies forward. Comments? We actually discussed this quite a while in policy, probably almost a half an hour, looking at all the different ramifications, and felt like at this point we needed to do a little bit of collaboration and look at what we can do with the business department on this one. So it has been moved and seconded that we table the discussion on policy 3053. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, it is tabled and it will come up for discussion in our next meeting. Thank you.
Okay, next item is our membership report. You've received that for September 30th. This is not our official October 1 count. That is being audited and certified, and we appreciate our business services team and the work they do on our student counts. So you will get that soon, that official or funding and other reports are tied to that October 1 count. But it will be similar to our September 30th count. A couple things to point out here. Still have 5 schools over 1,000. A couple of schools to point out the current population versus the projection. We see significant growth at Belmont and then at Trailside, in addition to those other schools that we projected that to growth. Overall, we are down 689 from our projections. A little bit more than that in our elementary, and that's buffered by an increase in our middle schools and high schools. So overall, our student count right now is standing at 84,836.
Thank you. Are there any other board member reports?
feasibly possible without a trailer. So it would have been easy for their rival schools to say, who can win because you can't get there, but they didn't. They rallied behind and supported them. And so just really want to publicly thank American Fork High School and Cedar Valley High School for coming to the aid of Westlake. Any other board reports? Seeing none, then we have need for a closed session. Do I have a motion to move into closed session?
I move that we move into closed session.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, so moved by Ada and second by Mark. We need a voice roll call.
Do you need to list the reasons, or is that necessary?
We are moving to closed session for reasons of litigation, personnel, and property.
Board Member Wilson, aye.
Joylyn Lincoln, aye.
Mark Clement, aye.
Sarah Hacken, aye.
Stacy Bateman, aye.
Okay, it is unanimous. Then this meeting stands adjourned. And we will Julie King, aye. Thank you, Julie.
Sorry, we were having audio issues.
I was kind of waiting for you, so thank you for chiming in.
Was that IO issues or a NAO issues?
I think all of